think the issues that are listed, if I understand the plan, if it's the one that was talked about during the campaign, the issues are issues that we will intend to address. I don't know that there's a firm timetable as to how long that will take, but those issues are issues that, our candidates ran on. They're things that were, expressed to the voters during the election. So I suspect you'll see them, but I don't know that we would be in a position to say it's going to be tied to 100 days or 75 days or 125 days. I would not say it's a partisan power grab. We opened the rules up to allow other members of the body to preside. The way it's been up until now, the lieutenant governor would preside, the pro tem would preside if he was not there, and if neither the pro tem nor the lieutenant governor was there, you generally had the deputy pro tem. And there are folks that probably, in years past were people that were familiar with the rules and had experience presiding. We've, in the rules, provided that from time to time, if the lieutenant governor is not here, we can designate some other member of the body to preside. And we intend to do that. I hope during this session that every member of the Senate will have an opportunity to preside at one point or another. And so one reason is that we just wanted to make sure that we had some consistency as far as an understanding of the rules, and so we're going to designate a parliamentarian if there's a question about a ruling of the chair. Wasn't necessarily particularly directed to the lieutenant governor. The other thing is that that provision is not necessarily unique. We, in going through the rules, actually requested some assistance from NCSL and asked some questions about how do you deal with issues if there's a question about a ruling from the chair. And what we were told is that there are a number of states that have in their legislative bodies provisions that call for a parliamentarian. I think Senator Stevens is the one that contacted NCSL about that. I don't have the email, but that's what I recall of the conversation. Well, ultimately, if it turned out that there was a ruling by the presiding officer and you didn't have a parliamentarian, then what you do is you appeal the ruling of the chair and you have a vote in the body. Well, what we do here is if there's a question about a ruling, we appeal to the parliamentarian. If there's still a question about it, you have an appeal and a vote of the body. So I don't see it as being that much of a so-called power grab or that much of a particular problem. It's just something that we felt, again, because we are going to have additional folks presiding, that it might be advantageous to make sure we have some consistency as far as the interpretations of the rules. Payers. Yeah. We've had some complaints over time within our caucus about pairing. It's also one of those things that, and I agree, I think it kind of goes both ways. You heard the discussion on the floor with Senator Berger and Senator East, and I think those are kind of the two sides of it. One side is, it's a courtesy. It's one of those things that if somebody can't be here, that you can work, you can do something to have something put on record. But the other side of it is, if you really don't want your vote recorded, you can find a way to pair, and it's a little more difficult for your constituents to figure out exactly what you did. So ultimately, we came down on the idea that you were elected to serve, you have to be here to vote, and if you want your vote to count, you need to be here. And we understand that there are going to be, from time to time, compelling personal situations where somebody maybe can't be here, but I think on balance, we prefer to have a situation where if you want your vote to count, you need to be here. I support term limits for legislative leadership, and I think you'll see a bill dealing with that issue as we move forward in both the House and the Senate. It's my understanding that Speaker Tillis also supports term limits for legislative leadership. Wait, let him follow up. You know, I introduced a bill a couple of sessions back that put it at 4 years, and I believe, Scott, in response to your question, when I introduced it, it was a constitutional amendment, and I think for it to be effective, it's got to be a constitutional amendment. One of the concerns that we've got is the number of issues relating to constitutional amendments that are kind of out there that may be brought forward. We don't want to end up with a ballot that looks like a California ballot where you've got 20 or 30 or even 15 or a dozen measures of constitutional amendments, but legislative term limits as a constitutional amendment, legislative leadership term limits as a constitutional amendment is something that we will deal with. There are a lot of issues going along with it. What are the right number of years? I think that's one of the issues. Some folks who feel like, we've got a governor that can be in office for 8 years, maybe the legislative leadership ought to be for 8 years, or maybe we ought to return the governor to 4 years and legislative leadership for 4 years. But we do support, at least I support, the concept of term limits on legislative leadership. Okay, yes, sir. I think we need to look for opportunities to enable the private sector to perform some of the functions that some folks like to have government perform, or maybe in some instances that government is currently performing. Specifics, we'll just have to look at those an issue at a time, but the broad concept of privatization is something that I support, and I think you'll find that members of our caucus support as well. Laura.
Sounds a lot like something the governor's going to say. How do you anticipate it? Now that you got your gavel and you voted in, how is this going to work out?
Time will tell. Up till now, I feel good about the level of communication that we've had between her office, my office, and direct communication between the governor and me. We're going to find something that we disagree on, and when we get there, we'll figure out a way to resolve that. I think on a personal basis, we'll be able to communicate well. I think if we're able to do that, that means that we should be able to at least address the issues on a level that promises to provide some resolution. Okay. We had 31 members of our caucus in the Senate and 68 members of the Republican caucus in the House who all ran on a platform of, we will not extend those temporary taxes. So that is one of the things we have said. We're going to keep the promises that we made to the people. And on this one, we're going to keep the promise that the Democrats made to the people 2 years ago. They promised 2 years ago that these were temporary measures. We said at the time that that's not the thing we should do. We should not raise taxes in a recession. It's going to create additional problems for the economy. We think that that's been proven true. We think the right thing to do is to take those taxes off. It's our belief that we can do that and we can fund the core functions of government in an appropriate and an adequate fashion. I am fully satisfied that there will be folks out there who will say the sky is falling and there are all sorts of problems. I'm not surprised that you're hearing them say that. Give us an opportunity to do what we're going to do. Let's see what happens. They've been in control for a long period of time. We've been in control for, if you count the start of the session, 3 hours. Okay. I feel good about it. I think it's going well. We'll see. We have, from all indications, set a historic pace in terms of getting folks into their offices, in terms of, you'll hear tomorrow, we're going to announce the committees that we've preliminarily announced up to this point. We'll get our committees taken care of tomorrow, and then next week we'll be dealing with bills. So I think that feels good. I feel like we've kept a commitment that we've made to be businesslike, to move things forward. I'm sure that we'll hit some snags, always do. We'll just deal with those as they come up. Gary. There will be at least one Democratic chair of a committee. I have asked Senator Michael Walters if he would co-chair the State and Local Government Committee. He has indicated that he would be willing to do that. We've not made an announcement on that, but that will be one of the committee announcements made tomorrow. I think that there are probably 4 measures that you'll see addressed in the first couple of weeks. One is the one you've alluded to. There's a bill that we hope to be able to bring forward that would address the current fiscal year. Part of that will be providing the governor with some additional authority to affect the savings that she has indicated that she can achieve. There are some other provisions that we're looking at. We're talking with the governor's office about some things, but you'll see that bill should start in the Senate. We'll do something in the Senate with reference to that. You'll also see a bill that deals with charter schools. The initial draft of the bill, as I understand it, is to lift the cap. Don't think the initial bill will have any of the other language in it, at least at the beginning, dealing with where the supervision of charter schools might be, criteria that may be different from where we are. I think those things will be discussed in committee, and you may very well see that bill amended to address some of those things. I think you'll also see a bill that I think Representative Stam has indicated that the House is going to move forward with a bill to repeal, or at least to challenge the individual mandate under the health care legislation. And I also expect that the House will probably move a bill that deals with some election laws. The one provision that I'm aware of is the voter ID. The requirement that an individual would show a photo ID at the voting enclosure. I think those things you'll see not only introduced but probably dealt with in committees. I defer to Speaker Tillis in terms of exactly what's going to happen in the House, but that's my preliminary understanding. Yeah, I think so, because it really hasn't been maybe I'm just oblivious to it, but I think that that'll be very much like I've dealt with things in the past. If the local folks come to me and they've got a concern, I will do what I can to try to help them out.
You said on Monday,
I hope he wins. I hope he wins. Then I hope he doesn't win.